Hey everyone, Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois here. Today I'm cooking a classic Cajun dish called dirty rice. It is hearty, it is bountiful, it is humble, and it is soothing all at the same time. Let me show you how to cook it. We got the classic trinity of onion, bell pepper, and celery. We have some chicken gizzards, some chicken livers. We got some ground meat. If you can find chicken hearts, that works great too. We have some jalapenos, some garlic. We have some already cooked rice. This is about 3 cups of long grain cooked rice. We have chicken stock and thyme. Now, first things first, as you know, we like to cook in one pot here in South Louisiana. So we're gonna go ahead and start with just a little bacon fat into this larger pot. I have the bacon grease in the pot. The first things I want to do is make sure that I'm cleaning my chicken livers and also drying them off before I fry them in the fat. Let's go ahead and just remove this stuff here from the cutting board. Let's get it over to the side because I do want to show you a little bit of how I like to clean chicken livers and also chicken gizzards as well. And gizzards, they're part of the part of the organ that really helps grind the food that the chicken is eating. If you cut into a gizzard, it's always full of sand. And the mixture of that muscle contracting with that sand is what helps grind and like kind of pulverize all the food that chicken is ingesting so it can be used for energy and so on. So that said, it's an organ meat it can be very, very tough. It needs time to cook and break down, and the smaller you cut it, the faster it cooks, and it's a really important part to making dirty rice. Dirty rice gets its name from actually looking dirty. It's like, see this white, beautiful, clean rice? Well, we're gonna dirty it up with these gizzards, livers, and ground meat, and that's how that dish kind of gets its iconic name. So very quickly, I'm gonna show you, we have nice and clean chicken livers here and clean gizzards here, but as you can see, this is an unclean chicken gizzard. It has silver skin here, it has silver skin there. Ultimately, we wanna try to get that silver skin off. This is a membrane right inside. Now, typically what happens is that is folded like so, and this chicken liver has been split. And so that's how the liver kind of looks when you get it. But when you buy them in a grocery store, they come clean without all that sand in the gizzard, and you'll get them like this, but they still need some processing from here. And ultimately, you want to better remove that tough membrane that's on the outside. You want to try to keep as much as that kind of red pinkish meat as you can, but removing that tough membrane on the bottom. And if you have your chicken livers that you've bought from the chicken gizzards that you've bought from the store, and they look like this, you can just lay them flat on a cutting board and try to very, very carefully kind of just fillet that meat off. And if you see a little bit of little bit of silver skin, you can kind of just trim that off, and that's what you want to use. I want to do the same thing here. As you get underneath, you can kind of go on the side there, get underneath that membrane, and then just, that one didn't work out as well. And you're not going to be perfect at this. And it's okay to have some silver skin or some membrane on there. You just don't want a whole lot of it. It really doesn't break down. It makes that gizzard really tough, almost impossible to digest. So you want to keep on going here. You find that membrane and you want to just kind of fillet that out like that. And then you're left with that little outer edge where I'm just taking and just trimming that off, saving all that. All right, that's your chicken gizzard. You know, it can be a little time consuming, but once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty fast. Like once you know what you're working with, just have a sharp knife, a steady cutting board, because it is a tough little piece of organ that you're going to want to really better cut through. All right, so that's your gizzard. It's cleaned up of all that membrane and silver skin. And then let's look at the liver. The liver is a little bit more straightforward. It's usually connected lobes, as you can see there, right? That's how you're going to get them straight out of the container at the grocery store. Now, what I like to do is I'm looking to remove all this excess membrane and connective tissue. And all I'm gonna do there is trim like so, and that's a cleaned chicken liver. If you didn't clean that silver skin and membrane off that chicken liver, I think it's just important to understand that what that organ actually does, and it's always working, right? And it's packed with all this sand and gravel which grinds this food. So it's a piece of organ, or it's really meat and a muscle, just like a chicken leg is. A gizzard is muscle, and it's used so often and so much that it's tough. The membrane and the silver skin surrounding it is even tougher. So you really want to break that down and remove that. A gizzard in and itself does have a chew to it. It needs to be cooked and it can be tenderized, but it will have like a chew to it, which is part of like what makes it nice. It's just a contrast of flavor. If you don't remove the membrane and the silver skin, it's almost like you're just gonna always be chewing on it. It'll never break down because that membrane doesn't wanna break down, but the meat, the muscle does. So we wanna just make sure you kind of get as much of that off as you can, just because it's just not a pleasant thing to be chewing on gizzards. It's what turns a lot of people off about gizzards. If they're not cleaned properly and cooked properly, they're just chewy, kind of never break down. You really want to find that happy medium where it's still got a good chew, still got a good bounce, but you can break it down with your teeth in your mouth and then, you know, have a good experience eating that. So the liver, you know, I'm not going to say that the liver is kind of the opposite. It's delicate, it's soft, it's luscious, it's vibrant, it's got a lot of nutritional it's a nutritional dense organ meat. If you trim all that, you know, trim that membrane off, the membrane is, it's not going to have the effects that the gizzard has, but it's kind of gross, as my 3-year-old say. It's kind of yucky, right? Let's just trim that off. There's no need for it. It's not adding anything more to the dish, but it will be like a little stringy if you cook it with it. So just take the one extra step and trim that liver and gizzard properly. Okay, now that I have my livers and gizzards clean, I'm just gonna take that, put that all together. Now, livers are like high in moisture, right? Now, what I wanna do is I wanna sear those livers up in this fat first before I start anything. But because they're so high in moisture, I like to just lay them out on a little paper towel, or you can put them in a colander in the sink and then blot them down with a paper towel. But you can see like just how much moisture is in this bowl of livers. And they kind of, you know, they come packed this way from the grocery store. I just like to get them dried off as much as possible. And this is actually a good piece of advice, even for when you're cooking steak or roasting any type of meat in a pan. This looks like kidneys right here. Nice. Anytime you're really roasting anything, you want to take the opportunity and really dry it off as best as you can. You're going to get a better sear. You're going to get better caramelization. You're going to get a better roast off of whatever you're cooking if that pan doesn't have to fight against the moisture or excessive moisture that's on that meat. And in chicken livers, it really is excessive. So I'm going to use my paper towel top and bottom and really blot those chicken livers dry. Bacon grease is in this pot. I'm going to kick it up on high. We want to get this bacon grease nice and hot. The goal here is to season these chicken livers that have been dried and sear them hard and fast in this bacon fat and removing them before they turn to a medium well, let's say. And then we're going to save that and kind of build in our pot from there. It's inevitable when you're cooking chicken livers, you're gonna have a lot of splatter and pop when it hits that hot grease. So you do wanna be like a little bob and weave little thing. Just make sure you got, you know, you're being careful, but more importantly, make sure the dogs, the kids, they're not hanging around, they're not doing whatever, because this will cause some splatter once I add that chicken liver into that hot grease. Right before I'm ready to season, you know what? I'm not even going to use salt and pepper. I'm going to use a little Slap Yummer white pepper blend. This is going to actually give just a little different flavor than its black pepper and cayenne pepper counterparts. I actually love this white pepper blend a lot, especially when making rice dishes, vegetable dishes, seafood dishes. I just find it really works well for these things. So I'm just going to season one side, and that's the side I'm going to really try to get in the hot grease. It may not be perfect. You don't need to overdo it. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be going into this dish of dirty rice, and we just want to get that initial seasoning on those livers first before all of the rest of stuff starts building in that pot. All right, I can see the smoke starting to rise from this pot, meaning we're starting to reach our smoke point for this bacon grease. That means we're pretty close. I'm gonna let it go for a few more seconds, let it get nice and ripping before I add those livers. But while that finishes getting hot, I'm gonna just take those gizzards. I just wanna process them a little bit more, and I'm just gonna run my knife through them. Just to break them down a little bit more, making sure that they have a good you want them to disperse through the dirty rice, pretty evenly. Again, we want this rice to look dirty, so the more we kind of get those small little bits chopped down and broken down, the more that's going to disperse, and the more we can break that gizzard down. And we don't have to rely so much on the heat. We can rely on the size of the gizzard being cooked to break down really nicely. All right, but now we're really smoking there. So I'll leave this on the cutting board and come back to it because it'll be the next thing that we put into this pot. All right, so rolling up my sleeves for this. Remember, about to see some splatter. And then I'm just gonna take these livers and I'm gonna try to get them into this hot pot very carefully. I'm going to try to do season side down. Already starting to splatter. Try to find an empty spot. Now I'm just tossing them in. That's okay, he too. You want to really get those frying in that grease. So what I like to do here, I'll just get a fresh plate or a different cutting board or something like that. So I want to land my chicken livers onto something. So this is what's going to kind of land those chicken livers. Now I'm just going to let those chicken livers rest in that pot and sear on one side without really moving them around too much. The only time I'm going to move them is when I scoop them out of the grease. But I just want to kind of develop a good sear in that bacon fat, let them do their thing. That's really going to keep me from overcooking those livers. While that sears, I'm just going to continue to chop down these gizzards. This is starting to look pretty good. If you have a grinder at your house, you can grind this as well. That works. If that's an easy lift for you, it's something on your counter, you use it a lot, you can go ahead and grind these chicken gizzards. Then they're really going to disperse well. They're going to add a whole bunch of flavor to this dish. All right, that's good enough for me. These chicken livers are looking pretty good too. So I'm going to keep the pan on hot, but I'm going to try as quickly as possible just to scoop these out. That one needs a little more time, I feel like. Get him back in. But all the rest of them look pretty good. All right. You can see I'm starting to put together a little bit of fond on the bottom of that plate, on the bottom of that pot. We're just going to rest those livers right there. Then I'm going to go right into with my gizzards. You take your bench scraper, just get those off and go right into the hot pot. It's still on ripping hot high, the technical term for how hot this is. And I'm going to break those gizzards up and start to fry in that bacon fat. Just get a good brown on that first before we move on to our next step. Really using that spoon to scrape the bottom of the pot, making sure there's no little, I believe in Cajun French, they may say the grimace, all the little bits that are stuck to the bottom. So it makes good gravies. That's what gives jambalaya its iconic color, and it's what's going to give dirty rice its iconic color. Is really developing these gizzards, the livers, and the ground meat into this pot and roasting it up, getting it brown, getting it nice and caramelized. All right, our gizzards are looking nice and brown and fried up. Again, they're starting to create a nice little fond on the bottom, which is the indication that I want to move on to my next step. This is a pound of ground beef. You can use ground pork, use ground chicken, you can use a mix of both, whatever you like, whatever you got in your freezer that's ground or something, or whatever kind of protein you like for that. Just consider this is a good kind of fill in. If you don't have enough gizzards or you don't have hearts or enough livers, ground meat does a really good job of kind of making that dirty rice look extra dirty as well. And the same thing, we want to just break that ground beef up into that pot, stir it around, scraping the bottom. So I'm going to add a little bit more fat to this pot because the livers kind of took a lot of it out. And just, I want to get that meat, again, frying into that fat, into that pot, just like the livers did. So add a little bit more oil to that. Scraping the sides. You can see my spoon removing all that fond from the bottom of the pot. That's what we want. That's what we want to see happen. We want to keep that bottom of the pot as clean as possible and use our wooden spoon. Do not use a metal spoon, by the way, on really anything when you're doing this. Whether you're cooking in a ceramic coated like this is, where you're cooking in cast iron or even stainless steel, you don't want to use a metal spoon to be scraping the bottom of the pot. I know there's a lot of influencers on Instagram, on YouTube that are scraping those pots with metal spoons. Stay away from that. Use a wooden spoon to scrape the bottom of your pot. That's for two reasons. That's gonna make your pot last longer, right? By not taking that hard metal and scraping it. But also, especially when you're going metal against metal, you just don't want that to happen. That metal is kind of like filing each other down. You're gonna get metal, even whether it's small or micro metals into your food. Just look, it's better. Use a wooden spoon. Use that to kind of scrape the bottom of your pot. It works just as good, if not better, than metal. Plus, you don't have to worry about all the kind of harmful side effects of that metal to metal scrapage. All right, this pot is looking dirty, 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 dirty. We got the ground meat. It's frying in that fat. And watch, if you come in tight on this, you can see all that stuff that's sticking to the bottom. And I just want to scrape that up. You can hear my wooden spoon just really being aggressive and abrasive onto that bottom of the pot, stirring that ground meat off. And you can see it. It's brown. It's not just gray ground meat. It's brown, fried ground meat. And that's what's really, again, as we develop these flavors into this pot, these are some of the foundation flavors that's going to really develop this dirty rice to look and taste good. We want look and taste good. Never forget, it's got to taste good, guys. So that's how you make things taste good. Next up, onion, garlic. I have fried meat in here. I want to add my onion and garlic first, and I want to kind of continue to do the same thing. I want to break down this onion. I want to get it past the translucent part till it starts to get golden brown and caramelize around the edges and kind of developing that sweet, full body onion flavor. It goes right into the fat. So does the garlic. Two things that are high in sugars. When heat hits sugar, you manipulate those sugars. They caramelize, they complexialize. They become more complex. How about that? And we want to do the same thing. Is just take that onion and stir that into the hot fat. If you feel like you need more fat, what should you do? You should add more fat. If it looks dry on the bottom, add more fat, whether that's olive oil, vegetable oil, lard, bacon fat, beef tallow, or butter. Go ahead and add more fat. You want that fat is a vessel, if you will, to help that onion and that meat continue to caramelize. And as that fat gets hot and fries, that's what's touching that onion and garlic. That's what's cooking it. So you want to make sure you have enough to really get that process going. And as that onion, I'm on high heat here, and as that onion and garlic start to sweat and break down, it's almost deglazing the bottom of that pan, releasing that fond or grimace from the bottom of the pan. And we're going to continue to develop that step by step, ingredient by ingredient, building and building and building until we're ready to bring it all together. Okay, you can see if you look into this pot, I mean, those onions are fried up. They're golden brown around the sides. I've got good fond on the bottom of that pan and working all around the sides of that pot, I should say. So now we're on to the next steps. I have bell pepper and celery. These are the last two remaining ingredients of the Trinity. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, the Trinity is onion, celery, and bell pepper. Typically, your celery and bell pepper add up to the amount of onion that you're using. And that kind of holds true to this recipe here as well. The onion's already in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add my bell pepper and celery right into the pot like so. Make sure you get all of that out. We also have some jalapenos. I tend to always kind of typically fold in jalapenos to most dishes that I'm using bell peppers in, just because it adds another little layer of pepper and heat to that dish that you can't get from a bell pepper. Last but not least, the trusty bay leaf has to go into the pot. And then just like the onions, I want to stir that bell pepper and celery into the pot. I'm going to use that moisture that lives inside of the bell pepper and celery. So when it hits that fat, it releases that moisture and it starts to clean the bottom of that pot. Or the technical term is deglaze. Thank you, almost forgot. But because of that, because I want to deglaze and because I want to actually draw moisture out of those ingredients, I'm going to add a pinch of salt to this as well. And that salt's going to really help draw that moisture out, make those peppers and celery sweat and soften. And just like the onion, I'm going to make sure I'm scraping the bottom of that pan, and I'm going to let that bell pepper and celery cook in that pot. If it looks dry, add more fat. Just another little douse of olive oil there to make sure we can get a good fry out of this pot. Probably another 10 or 15 minutes for that bell pepper and celery to break down before we move on. All right, we're back in it, folks. We got all of our meat, peppers, celery, onions. They're looking good, man. You can see, you've heard me talk about dirty rice and how to get that color, its iconic color. And you can see from right here, this should give you a good kind of vibe check, if you will, of how that color is going to look at the end of this whole cooking process. We're not done yet. We still have more to do. Now, there's two different methods, I think, to making dirty rice. One is if you go ahead and put raw rice into this pot and then cook the rice within all of it. The other method is what we're going to do today, and that's already cooked white rice right here. And it's a little bit more foolproof. It's a little easier for a home kitchen because you don't have to measure the rice so much and get it to that perfect amount to get the rice like perfectly cooked in the pot. I've already got the rice perfectly cooked, but now I need to add some liquid to this. I got a really good chicken stock here, about 4 cups. And what we want to do here is add it into that pot, hit it on high, and just let that reduce, because I do like a little bit more of a wet dirty rice. You'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But this is too much liquid for this amount of rice, so I want to concentrate that liquid at least by half, reducing it down by another 2 cups. You can go ahead and just pour that chicken stock right into here. We're on high here, and we're just going to cook this down till it reduces by half. This is a good point as well to just give it a vibe taste, if you will. We've seen the vibe check in the color, but now we need to give it a taste. I just want to see like where we're at. You know, it's funny. The chicken livers went in here early. That was the only seasoning really in this whole pot. And this is pretty well seasoned for not having just a little bit of pinch of salt in there when we're sweating down the vegetables. You remember, the only seasoning right now is the chicken livers that we're searing here and just a tiny pinch of salt. And that's really actually coming through right now. So I'm not gonna touch it quite yet. I wanna bring that chicken stock down by half, and then I'm gonna retaste and test before I go ahead and add my rice and finish up my dirty rice. Oh, one more thing, a bundle of thyme. You can go ahead and toss it right in there as well and let that bundle of thyme kind of cook. Do you need to tie it in a bundle? No. Will it make your life a little easier when the time comes so you don't have all the thyme stems in there floating around? Yes, it will make it easier. So go ahead and tie your thyme into a little bundle. Then at the end, you can just pull that out. All the flavors in there, but the thyme is out. All right, so just about time to finish up this dirty rice. The last two ingredients, we got rice and chicken livers. So I wanna just grab these chicken livers. You can just remove them off the plate. I'm gonna add that juice, boop, like that. And I like to just give these guys a rough chop here. Just get them broken down a little bit. They're cooked, they're completely edible right now, but they're gonna kind of finish cooking in this last step. And I kind of hold them back. You could leave them in the whole time, but I find it's just a better flavor, better liver flavor if you hold them back and don't overcook them and hammer them down in that pot like the gizzards have. Remember, this is a completely different organ, completely different flavor and mouthfeel, so you don't need to hammer them like the gizzards have been. So you can see in this pot, I have a fair amount of liquid left in there, but that's good. This rice is gonna soak a lot of that up. I'm gonna add my rice into the pot, like so. I'm gonna get that stirred in. As that rice heats up, it's gonna absorb that liquid. And it's gonna start developing kind of that dirty rice kind of feel. But before that happens, I wanna add my chicken liver right into the pot. Now this chicken liver is gonna continue cooking. It's gonna end up being, medium well, if you will. The fact that it won't have any like blushness to it, but we wanna just keep it on high, stir that chicken liver in. There we go. Now it's looking good. We're gonna bring that up to a good simmer and cook it for another, I don't know, probably 5 minutes until I feel like that dirty rice is in the right stage consistency. But I do want to taste it here. Man, that thyme and bay leaf is really coming out there. I'm gonna add a little bit of slap in there, just a touch. A little more salt. Some good heaps of black pepper. I'm gonna cook that down. And while that cooks down, I'm gonna stir it. Man, this pepper mill just doesn't wanna like work with me. As that cooks down and comes together, you can see now what I mean by a wet, dirty rice. We want it to dry up just a little bit. Let that cook down and continue. I'm gonna go ahead and pluck some parsley. Nice little rough chop of Italian parsley. Same with green onion. I can hear, it's funny, that's one of the things about cooking. Of course, your sight, taste, the smell, that all matters, but like using your ears when you're going through a recipe. I can hear right now my moisture in that pot. It's becoming less and less, and I'm starting to hear more of a fry and sizzle with the fat that's being contacted, with the rice in the bottom of the pan, and that's giving me a good indication that it's time to go, Jean-Paul. It's time to finish this thing up and serve this. So I got my green onions, parsley, grab my knife, I'm going right into the pot here. I'm gonna turn the fire off on here. a lot of heat happening inside of this pot. It's going to kind of continue to cook, but I want to just fold, and I can remove my little thyme bundle. Don't want that in there anymore. It's done its job. He is relieved of his duties. This is a great dirty rice if you want to stuff it inside of peppers. You want to stuff it inside of a whole chicken and put that on the smoker and cook it. I've seen it stuffed in pork chops. I've seen it used in many different ways. But because it has that wet consistency, if you stuff it inside of things, it really just keeps whatever you're stuffing really moist and nice, and adds another little layer of flavor to what you're cooking. Got to taste it again. Tell me, does that look like white rice anymore? No, that looks like dirty rice. Need some more seasoning. A little hit of salt. I'm gonna hit it with a little hot sauce because I want the vinegar. I want the vinegar just to, dirty rice is made of humble ingredients, but it's rich because it's got all that liver, it's got the ground meat, it's got a lot of fat in it, so it's got a richness to it. So you need some vinegar every now and then to give it some life, give it some pop. Add a little bit more of that white pepper blend from Slap. I have a feeling this is getting pretty close here. All right. Woo, that's the one right there. That dirty rice is done. Man, that reminds me of my childhood. Probably cooked a little differently than the dirty rices I've had in my community church potlucks growing up, but it's still nostalgic in that way, but cooked with just maybe like a little bit more chefy approach and the way I would do it. I love this recipe. It's so good as a main meal, stuffed inside of things. Any way you like it, it reheats well. It actually freezes well as well. And you can bring that out of the freezer, defrost, and just pop it in the mic, and it actually does pretty good. But eating right out the pot like that, it just cannot be beat. My name's Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and I am out.